Good evening and welcome to our regular council meeting this November 6th, 2023 at 7 p.m., 7:45 exactly. So call to order. Moved by Deputy Lang. Moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that the November 6th, 2023 meeting of the Township of South Glengarry now be opened at 7:45 p.m. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none. Carried. We'll now sing our national anthem. All right, before we get into the formalness of our meeting, I'd like to give council an opportunity. We have our new CEO has arrived, so I'll introduce him. This is Mr. Doug Robertson. So if you want to say hello.
Thank you, Your Worship. I greatly appreciate council's confidence and trust in me, and I'm very much looking forward to working with you and the community and staff as well.
Thank you. And then secondly, to say thank you to Kelly Campo, who has served as our acting CEO for the past 7 months. I know I said a little bit last week, but I said we go around the table today, so I'll start with Deputy Mayor Lang if you want.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. First names, maybe. Thanks, Kelly. We appreciate it very much, and I know it's not easy to do two jobs, and it hasn't always been, everything didn't go on perfectly smoothly the whole time, but you did a great job, so thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Kelly. As Martin is saying, you did a great job and truly appreciate your willingness to step in and your dedication to the township. It's really, really, really appreciated. Thank you so much.
Again, thank you, Kelly, very much for all the hard work. I know it wasn't easy, and you definitely, I'm sure, worked long hours to keep everyone in check, and a lot of moving parts at times, but we really appreciate it. I know you have a lot going on in your life, and you stepped up and took that role, so we do really appreciate it. Thank you.
And thank you, Kelly. It was a pleasure having you sitting in that chair, and I hope you learned a lot over that time and help you with your development here with us. And we're all very happy with the job you did, and be very good for us going forward. So thank you.
I match all their sentiments, and also a little gift from us. It is a ball of maple syrup, we'll call it, that you can enjoy with your sister. And also, if you check your email, there is a little gift certificate there as a show of our appreciation. And we understand that you sometimes go Gatineau area with your sister too. So you can read into what that is, but please enjoy it. Yeah, it's just a little thank you. And it is a little thank you for all the work. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Kelly. And I'm going to give a round of applause, please. Okay. And Kelly, yes, of course. Oh, Kelly wants to say something.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I know I'm inclined to say no thanks necessary, and but I've been told by by you to just say thank you when you receive a compliment. But I do have to extend the thanks, and I certainly can't take it all on myself, to our team. Certainly these folks to my left, our management team and my corporate services team, but to our whole staff here at the township. We have the most hardworking people who truly love this township, and they made my job easy the last few months. So, but thank you.
You're welcome, and then I guess here to the staff too. So thank you. A disclosure of pecuniary interest. Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll declare on the presentation 6B, peanut line options analysis final report, so as I'm a budding property owner.
I likewise have to declare, as I am also a budding property owner of the Peanut Line. At that time, I'll ask Deputy Mayor Lang to, I guess, chair that portion of the meeting, and I'll just roll back. Approval of agenda. Were there any questions or noted changes?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. We do have an item being deleted from this evening's agenda, that being the closed session item. And we have a number of items that have been requested to be pulled from the consent agenda into items for consideration, those being item 10A, the accessibility status report, 10C, the postponement of the grants and donations policy report, item 10E, the proclamation request from Habitat Cornwall, as well as item 10H, the resolution for amendment to the Legislation Act, and there's one more, 10F, the letter from MPP Catherine Fife.
All right, thank you. So moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Bougie. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Approval of the previous meetings minutes. Were there any errors or corrections to be made? Seeing none. Moved by Councillor Jaworski, seconded by Councillor Bougie. Be it resolved that the minutes of the following meetings be adopted as circulated. Previous meeting minutes, October 16th, 2023. Public meeting minutes, October 16th, 2023. Special meeting minutes, October 26th, 2023. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. We'll get into presentations and delegations. Cornwall Business Enterprise Center updates. Ms. Shauna Baggs. And welcome back. So when you sit down, just please click on the microphone, and you'll have to speak fairly closely to it.
There we go. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. It is definitely a pleasure to be in South Glengarry. It's been a little while, and it's so nice to see everyone again. And I'm happy to be able to give you an update of what not only I've been up to, but what our center has been up to in the next few minutes. So for those of you who aren't familiar with who I am, my name is Shauna Baggs, and I manage the Cornwall Small Business Enterprise Center in Cornwall at the Civic Complex. Today I will go over just a high-level overview of what our center is all about and how it serves the residents of not only the city of Cornwall, but Stormont, Dundas, Glengarry, and Akwesasne. And I'd like to just point out that although our name is Cornwall Business Enterprise Center, that's really our location of where our office is. So we're centrally located in the city. However, we definitely service the entire region, and that again being Stormont, Dundas, Glengarry, Akwesasne, and Cornwall. First, I'd just like to give you a brief history of where the center began. So the center itself has been open since about 1985, so just over 25 years or so. We have a whole bunch of various services and support that we do provide through the center, and that is carried out by our staff of 2 permanent employees and 1 contract position. We're primarily funded through the province, through the Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. but we are supported through the City of Cornwall, as well as partners in the community like the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, and also local business partners. Our coverage area, as I mentioned, covers our entire region. We go from Alexandria to Lancaster to South Mountain to Iroquois and everywhere in between. So the region is quite large, and we do get to meet a lot of new business owners. Next, I'd just like to go through a bit about our daily operations. Oops. Oh, sure. Thank you, Michelle. There we go. Oops. Sorry about that. I might have missed a slide here. So our daily operations are run through the City of Cornwall's Economic Development Department. But we do have a lot of collaborations internally with various different organizations within the community. Again, being United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, Akwesasne, as well as a lot of community partners like Chamber of Commerce, and there's quite a few chambers throughout the different townships. So we work closely with those guys. And we also work with the local economic development departments within each municipality. As part of a broader network, we are one of 54 small business centers across the province. And this enables us to be able to really communicate with different centers, find best practices, see what kinds of activities that other centers are doing, and definitely share knowledge. As well as we're also part of a larger innovation hub, which is also known as RICS, so they're the Regional Innovation Centers. Our Regional Innovation Center for our area is actually in Kingston. It's called Launch Lab, but we're also working closely with Invest Ottawa. So just recently, we have partnered with them to do a special project, which is hopefully launching in the new year. Oops, okay. We'd like to call our center as a one-stop shop. So for all small business needs, whether you be starting out, you be expanding your business, or you're purchasing your business, this is definitely a goal that we have, is to be able to support small business owners across the board. And we do this by really 5 objectives. And these objectives include providing guidance and assistance to business owners through personalized consultations, addressing their specific needs and challenges, disseminating valuable information and resources to small businesses, keeping them informed about market trends, industry insights, and regulatory changes, offering training programs and workshops to enhance the skills and knowledge of entrepreneurs, empowering them to run their own business effectively, facilitate mentorship opportunities, connecting experienced professionals with small business owners to provide guidance, inspiration, and support, and finally, foster collaboration and networking among small businesses by organizing events and conferences, seminars, workshops, where they can connect and learn from each other, and especially explore potential partnerships. So for these 5 objectives, we really try to meet them in a variety of different ways. And some of these ways are as follows. So I'd like to bring your attention to that big number on the side of the screen. So 98.1% of employer businesses are small businesses. And they make up 64% of the people that work in these small businesses are the total labor force. So the impact of small business on our community is quite large, and the value behind supporting these small business owners filter through everything from not only business support, but also being a part of our community as a whole. Okay, so how we really touch base with our clients is in a few different ways. So one, which is our main kind of bread and butter, is one-on-one consultations. And these one-on-one consultations really provide entrepreneurs with personalized service. So as an example, just today I met with a couple of entrepreneurs and we reviewed their business plan. So by just having that voice, that other person on the side of the desk that enables them to kind of speak their ideas, really helps them focus in on what they're going to do and hopefully helps them create a viable business at the end of the day. We also provide support for registering a business. So just recently, the province has announced that registering a business in Ontario, the format has changed just a little bit. So you no longer need a one key, which is great, but there's a different process. So we would help business owners who are existing with registering their business and the one they want to renew. We'd help them with that, and also new businesses, help them register online. We provide training and workshops of all different kinds, and our training really supports not only the business owners at the beginning levels of their entrepreneurial journey, but also at every stage of their business. So we try to have a broad range of training that we can help as many people as possible. I mentioned business plan writing. That's another hard one. If those of you who've written a business plan before or even read a business plan in your past, they're not the easiest documents to create. And we really try hard to walk our clients through one step at a time, so it's not so overwhelming. And at the end of the day, they have a document where they're very proud of, they're confident, and they can be as successful as possible, potentially bringing it to investors. And that's one of the other items that we help small businesses on, is funding opportunities. So we announce funding opportunities on both our website and social media, but also if stuff comes across our desks, we share it with individuals who it may impact. You may be familiar with a recent funding announcement through the province that they have additional funds right now open for e-charging stations, and it's open for small business owners across the board, and applications are being accepted now. And finally, we offer guidance on just accessing various different financial institutions and organizations. We have a current partnership with ACC Futures, or CFDC, or local CFDC, and it's called ACC Starter. And ACC Starter Microloan is a program that only participants in our Starter Company Plus program can access. So little partnerships like that go a long way in being able to provide support, not only from our center, but as part of our partnership and part of building the community as a whole for our small business network. Okay, oops, sorry, there we go. Okay, so this number you see in front of you is a very large number, and I'm very proud of this number. This is the amount of connections that we've made just this year. So at the Business Enterprise Center, we speak to a lot of people, we connect with a lot of people, and we try to make it our business to be able to help as many businesses as possible. And this is an example of the amount of connections that we have made in various different forms, some of them that I've mentioned earlier. Oops, sorry, there we go. This number here is the amount of workshops and training sessions that we've had over and above our regular programming like Starter Company Plus. And we've been able to connect with many entrepreneurs, but more importantly, we've been able to give them the opportunity to build their own personal network. So not only are these training sessions available for people to learn and to have self-learning themselves and to develop skills that they may not have had, but it's also an excellent opportunity to build connections within the community and potential partnerships within the business world as well. So this is one of our main training programs, and it's called Starter Company Plus. Some of you may be familiar with some of the participants in the program. And I'd like to draw your attention to the chart just to the side. So there's about 58% of businesses versus about 39%. So about 40% or so of businesses that come from SDG are part of the Starter Company program. And whenever we were doing the analysis, It's really goes to show that even though the majority of businesses may be within the urban settlement area, there's a lot of businesses out in Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, and a lot of them are taking advantage of the programs offered through CBEC. Here's just an example of a few people that have taken part in the program recently. You may find a few that you're familiar with. One of them being Sophie, who's a recent graduate of the Starter Company program. Also Fraser Creek. So you can see the wide diversity of different businesses that we do assist, and all of the different ranges and forms and all across the board. Another popular program that we offer is for youth, and it's called Summer Company, and it's within, of course, the summer months. There's about a 56% or so uptake from specifically Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry in the program. And this program itself is similar to Starter Company, but the great thing about Summer Company is that it's for youth, and it gives them a chance to experiment with their ideas that they have as a young adult. And then potentially, after they finish school, then they can start their business on a permanent basis. So we've seen over the past few years that businesses not only take part in 1 year, then after they've graduated from the Summer Company, they open their business again the following year, and then we may even see them in Starter Company after they've graduated school. So it's a real process, and we are there to support them all the way through. Here's just an example of a few familiar faces some of you may recognize over the last few years. And this is a fairly new program that we had. So if you can kind of imagine this, Digital Main Street, you may be familiar with that program through the province, has been around for 4 years. And during these 4 years, our area has never had a digital service squad. So residents and business owners could take part in the program by connecting with somebody online and having that type of communication, but it wasn't necessarily personalized, and it wasn't somebody from their hometown. That's all changed. So as of the new year, we applied and received Digital Main Street grant to start a digital service squad here in Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry. And I'm very proud to say that we have just this year been able to help many business owners receive, there's something called the Digital Main Street Grant, which helps in a variety of digital tools, but we're upwards $100,000. So that $100,000 that would have been potentially going elsewhere in the province is now sitting here in businesses in our community. So that's an excellent program through Digital Main Street, and we have a digital service coordinator position that's currently open right now. Our digital service coordinator he was so excellent, he got a full-time job somewhere else. And now he's going to be as permanent position, so we are recruiting for a digital service coordinator. The Shop Here program I took advantage of myself as a small business owner, and it's an excellent program. It provides an e-commerce site for free for 6 months with assistance, and also the Canada Digital Jobston program, or CDAP for short, offers a $2,500 grant for e-commerce sites right now with assistance. These are some of the numbers that we have. The slide was created a little while ago, so we're now at $100,000 for grants. We've touched base with over 400 different business owners, helped over 15 e-commerce stores open. Here's a few examples of people with their big checks receiving the $2,500. It's not very long, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to get a check. One that just received theirs actually is Marlin Orchard, so just a couple of days ago they were approved. And finally, I'd just like to leave you with this number, because traditionally what really goes into the Business Enterprise Center and what most people consider as assistance to small business owners is that one-on-one consultation and the training programs, and just the assistance with the financial forecasting, which is it's excellent and it's definitely necessary, and we are happy to provide those services. But over and above that, one thing that really is a key component to any successful business is your network and your community. And this number actually signifies the amount of connections that we've made through special events just this year. So it's actually a little bit over that now because we just recently finished an event, and we will have another one on Wednesday in North Dundas, our breakfast connections there. And everybody's invited if you'd like to attend at Fat Les's Pub and Poutineery. But really, that number is really significant because for every connection that we've made or any participant at those different events, each connection could potentially lead to something else, to lead to something else, to lead to something else. And that in itself really builds a strong economic development and also a strong community. And with that, I'd like to just encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn or on Facebook. And of course, all of our programs and events are on our website, businessenterprisecenter.ca.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from council? Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Just want to, we have a pretty heavy agenda today, so I'll be really quick. I just want to thank you, Shauna, for coming, and I really appreciate you highlighting some of the local businesses that have taken advantage of both the starter company and the summer company, and also I know lots of folks who take advantage of those the networking events that you have too, and they find those really valuable. So I appreciate getting to hear more from you this evening. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much for your time, and great to have that money come back to the community. It's nice for it to come here rather than somewhere else. So thank you for your efforts and work on that.
Thank you.
We will move to the second presentation of the evening. So that's the peanut line options analysis, final report by WSP. And then Sherilyn will do an intro, and I will have to step aside. So Deputy Mayor Lang, please take the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sherilyn?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. WSP presented the interim report for Peanut Line Options Analysis Project back in August, so they're here now to present a final draft report. WSP was hired earlier this year to complete the Peanut Line Options Analysis Project with us, which has involved a lot of research, information gathering, and extensive consultation. This project was to provide the township with options for the trail and outline long and short-term direction. It has been mentioned in the report and through discussions, but this really is just the beginning phase of dealing with the peanut line. It was purchased back in 2009, and strategic planning for the asset was not completed at the time or followed through on. So it's important to remember that this is just the start of trying to find the best way forward for this asset. Administration has worked with WSP to research and outline the four main options for the peanut line, but there are more discussions, research, and work to be done on this item. Council will have an opportunity to comment on the outcomes after the presentation, and any necessary adjustments can be made. Staff will bring a report to council, accepting the final report once adjustments have been made. And just as a reminder, similar to the Parks and Rec Master Plan that we completed last year, accepting their final report does not necessarily mean that council is committing to following through with everything that's outlined in the recommended option. However, if approved, that would be the direction that the township would work towards. So in order, obviously, to follow through with major items like capital and agreements, that has to go through council anyway. But tonight it is just the presentation from WSP, so I will hand it over to Amy and Allison for their presentation.
Thank you. My name is Allison Good. Thank you for having us, Mr. Mayor and Council. I am a senior landscape architect with WSP based out of Ottawa, and with me is Amy Purvis, who would be a familiar face to some of the people in the room. She was the PM on this project largely and participated in the public consultations. So we're both here to answer any questions, but I'll just walk through the overview of why we're here today for the final report presentation. We like to begin each presentation that we give with an Indigenous land acknowledgement. It's lovely of you to have us here visiting and the place that you call home. And it's a nice reminder that there are generations that have called this area home prior to our arrival. So want to give an acknowledgement to the First Nations of this area. An overview and a reminder of the project purpose. We were engaged to develop options for the future of the Peanut Line Trail, and we're informed largely about what those options would be through our public engagement strategy. As landscape architects, we will provide design standards and precedents that inform both operations, maintenance, and guidance on future land use, partnership agreements, road crossings, et cetera, and provide best practice examples. We've done some order of magnitude costing for trail infrastructure to inform things like annual maintenance as well, and recommendations that generally speak to the future of the trail opportunities that exist. As you can see from the slide, we're basically at the end of the assignment to which we were brought on, so we're hoping that you're happy with where we're at so far. At the interim presentation, which we participated in the summer, we did virtually. We walked through the overview of what was done, the overview of the existing conditions analysis that was completed, our opportunities and constraints for the trail itself, a summary of the public consultation that had been undertaken at that time, which included a virtual session, online survey, in-person public information center for both adjacent landowners and the general public throughout all phases. There were 4 trail options explored. One was to formalize the trail as a township-wide trail system. Option 2 was to keep the western portion, close the eastern portion, and sell the public lands in that corridor. Option 3 is a sort of what we would consider a hybridized approach, both to land use and to the improvements to be made to the township-owned portions of the trail. And the 4th would be to sell any township interest in the trail alignment itself. I should note that like all these options were presented on the July 20th public consultation sessions, and generally there was more public support from those outcomes for option 1, but the adjacent landowners preferred option 2, so there was a bit of a difference there. Since the interim presentation, we've coordinated with township staff through Sherry Lynn, evaluated and assessed the options and priorities, both based on the physical opportunities on the site and the feedback that we received from township residents. We've updated our report that was in draft form earlier this summer, and based on the feedback received from council at that time, as well as staff and consultation, come to a preferred recommended option. Prepared the final report, which you have in your package today. And included in that report is an opinion of probable cost or order of magnitude costing for the option presented. The order of magnitude costing does include capital costs, annual maintenance, and operating costs. It's meant as sort of I guess, the total bucket that could be required for everything that's identified. It's not meant to say you have to spend all that money immediately or that you have to spend it all at all. It's just to make sure that you are aware of the full impacts financially to the preferred option. So getting to the recommended option, we compared pros and cons of each of the 4 options that you saw. We evaluated and assessed them, and there's a matrix included in the report that sort of talks through each of the individual items. But this included background review, including site visits, review of land use policies, plan development, and the like. The character of the existing corridor, potential connections and area amenities, existing conditions, including road and bridge crossings, and took back feedback from adjacent landowners as there are some unique sites related to that along the corridor. Design considerations, including crossings, traffic, parking, access, trailheads, and the like, and then landowner and other agency requirements. The evaluation matrix included criteria to determine from least preferred to most preferred so that we could rank individual options against each other. And then, as I mentioned, we prepared an opinion of probable cost, and it assumes the highest level of the elements implemented or identified in the report. So I like to categorize this as this is the Cadillac version. If you did everything, just so you sort of have a vision of what it could be. It's not to say that is you have to do everything or you have to do everything all at once, and that's part of how we've tabled the report. It could be implemented in a phased manner, and that is part of the recommendation of option 3. So option 3, as I mentioned, is what we're calling the hybridized approach. It incorporates both aspects of option 1 and option 2 as presented to the public. It focuses the township and community efforts on a specific trail portion so that it's a little more manageable at the outset, and you can kind of see the progress more quickly. It also acknowledges that there's existing parks and active transportation networks that it focuses on connecting to. And it gives the time for you to sort of predict and figure out where the priorities lie in the implementation. Option 3 recommends a 15-year plan, so this is not something that's happening in the next calendar year or even maybe in this term of council, but definitely over time. So some of the considerations for implementation based on the report, which is what we're presenting here today, the priorities and next steps have been identified. We'd ask that staff will review the resources, complementary capital projects, items that may come up annually that would be related to other trail improvements. One example that was in discussion was culverts. So if there are culverts that need to be replaced or are already being replaced, those could be done with this in mind, and you can kind of check it off this checklist. You can explore partnership opportunities, land use agreements, and funding of projects to extend the trail over time. And we've been clear that we would identify decision gates. So when another consultation needs to happen, when staff, council, property owners have to be engaged, those have all been identified in the report. And we've identified a series of future studies that would be required for the next phase. This is essentially a feasibility analysis. What are the options? Is it feasible to do so? And the next step would be taking it forward and saying, okay, if it's feasible to do this option, these are the things we need to do. So we've worked to outline those for you. Some of those could include things like a traffic and road crossing study, a cost-benefit analysis for certain aspects, consideration of a trails master plan to develop and guide the future trail network, arboricultural assessments, a stormwater management plan for various aspects, and a trail safety study. Those are just examples, but there's more outlined in the report. So our next steps, we're here obviously for this presentation. We'll receive your comments, and our ambition is to revise to address your comments and the feedback we received today or through staff, and then update the report and issue it as a final report to the township for them to move forward. And I'll leave it at that and open it to any questions from council. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm just going to take a few seconds to acknowledge our guest. And the guests in the room, I think, for the most part, are the people who are maybe feel they will be the most affected by this trail. A lot of the adjacent landowners along the trail. So thanks for coming out. I know it's good to kind of keep on top of what's happening, and we appreciate your interest very much. Just so you'll know exactly how it works, you won't have a chance to comment tonight, but you definitely can comment to any of us at any time, as you very well know. So my personal thought, and I haven't run it by staff too much, but we know we're not accepting the report tonight. We're going to make comments on it. It's going to come back at another meeting. And I would think that as a council, we likely will have to have maybe a committee of a whole or something, because I suspect we'll take the report and accept it, and then maybe try to tweak it to how we feel it will work. So that's likely the process, but I'm just speaking as myself, and it could go either way, but I will be pushing for that myself. I think we do need to have that whole discussion amongst ourselves to see what we take from it. So with that, I'll open it up to questions. I guess it's between Stephanie and Trevor. Trevor, go ahead. You get your hand up first.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, thank you very much for the presentation. So just looking at the full report, option 3 cost estimate, it mentioned there for the infrastructure costs for option 3 would be about $4.9 million. So is that all roads, is that all culverts, bridges, everything included, full maintenance costs? And then when I scroll down even further, it said life cycle costs, I believe, of 15 years to bring it up to a standard. It said the estimated grand total for maintenance, life cycle, additional study costs for the entire option 3 trail is $14.1 million. Now, is that the numbers that, or how did you come about those numbers? Over life cycle of 15 years, or?
Thank you for the question, through you, Deputy Mayor. So all of our pricing is based on the individual components identified in the options, and this is all calculated based on other trail projects. We have a database and a tool that we use internally that helps us identify these costs and sort of look at them as an order of magnitude. I did speak to it in the presentation, and I know there's quite a bit of sticker shock, but this is to say if you did every element identified in the option, including wayfinding, trail upgrades, construction, rehabilitation, stormwater management, you name it, if you added up all of those components, at some point over the next 15 years, yes, that's probably what it would cost. Now, it's an order of magnitude costing. We haven't done detailed design on any of this. It is too premature to say for certain. And as I mentioned, this is kind of the Cadillac of estimates, because there are efficiencies that could be found through any implementation project that you choose to do. And it's not to say that it's considered, because we didn't do a financial review, that wasn't part of our purview, of other capital improvements that the township might be undertaking or other project works that are underway. So for example, I use the culvert example. If you had culverts that were already being replaced, we haven't subtracted that from the balance, but you wouldn't be spending the money twice. Yeah, so it's a big sort of generous bucket, if I'm going to be candid, so that you can plan and prioritize accordingly. But I don't expect that the township would write a check for $14 million tomorrow, or that that's a realistic option. And that I think the thing that we like to flag is that there are ongoing costs. There aren't just the capital improvements of maintenance and land agreements that need to be budgeted for in a long-term strategy. Okay?
Thank you. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. I have a number of questions. Do you want me to deal with them one by one, or do you?
Go for it.
Go for it, okay, go for it. All right, great, thank you. So first of all, I do want to thank you ladies for the work that you did. For me, the most important thing about this process was that consultation was a wide-ranging consultation, getting as much feedback as we could, both from residents at large, trail users, and very importantly, the adjacent landowners. And while, I mean, certainly we can always do more consultation, nothing's perfect. I'm sure there's folks even here today who would have liked even more consultation, and certainly there's opportunities for more consultation to come. I do want to highlight that in my experience, this is probably the most consultation we've done on a topic, at least in my time on council. So I do want to thank you for spearheading that and for putting all that feedback together. But I think the Deputy Mayor mentioned it at the beginning that, this does, in the end, what's decided comes down to council, and so there can always be more consultation one-on-one with council. So now my questions, the first question I have, and these are no particular order, in terms of consultation, I was surprised, because I did come to both of the in-person sessions, and I was surprised that in the report it mentions that only one adjacent landowner did a one-on-one session with you folks. And I guess I wanted, if you could put that in context, how many folks actually signed up for a one-on-one and how they would have taken advantage of that, please.
Speak, go ahead. Okay. Thank you for the question, through you, Deputy Mayor. We had the in-person on July 20th, and we had an hour with the adjacent landowners to go through the different options. At this time, there was a sign-up sheet available, and as I talked to most of the gentlemen here, along with others, they were informed that there would be a one-on-one opportunity to come. So we did have a group of 7 sign up, and only one did accept the online virtual one-on-one session. So it was discussed by the majority of the group that they preferred to having an in-person on their site lands one-on-one. And after taking their questions back and reviewing it, it did not feel that it would be productive to spend the time for us to come back out in person, because a lot of the questions were regarding risk management, liability, ownership, which is outside of what we are able to answer for this level of detail of a project. So we did send out an invitation to everyone who did sign up to participate in a online one-on-one session. I do admit the timing being August and having engagement over the summer especially is never the best. It is unfortunate that that's how the schedule had to roll out. In hindsight, we could move something to be more in January, February, March months when it's not impacted during harvest and seasonal times. However, at this point, we didn't receive any feedback, and so with the time to get everything completed, we weren't able to actually connect to have further discussions.
Oh, thank you very much. That's helpful. So just so that we have that context as we move forward with the process, to know where we might need to ask for some more questions. Then my next question relates to, in the report, it refers to, and this is more so just, I mean, again, you know, just because the report eventually gets accepted by council, that doesn't necessarily mean that this council or future council is bound by every detail. But I do look at the report as being an important document for the future so that people can use it as a reference. And so the comments about how many outstanding privately held parcels that there are. There are some privately held parcels on the Peanut Line, and I think that it would be important to provide a bit more detail or context, recognizing we have to respect people's privacy. But if there could be a bit more detail, because I think there's different perceptions. Some folks think there's lots of privately held land in the Peanut Line, and other folks are not aware. So I was just hoping if you could put a bit more context on that, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Deputy Mayor, we can certainly add that to report. And just for clarification, there are 5 privately held parcels in the corridor that approximate to about 2% of the total corridor length. So I think to, you know, address that perception that it's a lot, we will certainly incorporate that into the report. 2%.
Thank you. And my last topic, thank you for indulging me, Deputy Mayor Lang. I'm glad you used the word Cadillac, because when I wrote my question, I was trying very hard to avoid using that word because I thought that it would came across too negatively. But there was sticker shock. I did think it was, it's very high. But I did also appreciate in the report how you gave some examples from other trail systems, in particular the Prince Edward County's Millennium Trail that has some similarities to the Peanut Line. And I thought that was very interesting in how, you know, they have, obviously, it's not the Cadillac version of a trail, but they have made, you know, made big headway on their trail at significantly less cost. So I did want to raise that, you know, it is, there's the perfect trail, and then there's the good enough trail. And then also to build on what Councillor Bougee said earlier about the costs. I'm still a little confused because my understanding is of the costs, the probable costs, that it's more of a cost of the surface, to put it simply. You know, the granular crowning, parking infrastructure. I didn't get the sense that your cost estimate included, I forget how many minor culverts there are in the Peanut Line, but I think, I don't know, it's 30, good estimate. But, pardon me? Oh, yeah, I thought you had the numbers. No, but so sorry. But in all seriousness, are the costs or the conditions of those culverts, like the subsurface culverts, are those included in that, or is that really outside? Thanks.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Deputy Mayor, they're not all included. I think the thing to be mindful of is when you say surface level, like we are also including things like intersection crossings and wayfinding strategies, signage, and then the conditions of the trails will require more than just like a surface treatment in some cases. And many of those condition assessments haven't been done. So the reason that I think our prices are erring on the side of caution on the high side, potentially for certain items, is to help protect against what we don't know at this stage. And there will be some detailed design investigations that would be required when we get to implementation. But it is a fair point, and because of the nature of, I guess, the volume of the report and all the elements we're dealing with, we would like to take the opportunity through receiving these comments to update the report to be more explicit on what's included and what's excluded, so Township has more information to make the next decision.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Bougee, anything further to add or any more questions?
No, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, that I think a committee of the whole would be useful to kind of discuss this further. That's it.
Thank you. For staff, Sherry Lynn, a question for you. Seeing as this report was basically 300 pages, and I know we all have day jobs, and I'm quite sure we read it the best we could, but if we want a little more time to go through it, and if there's anything further, do you have a timeline for us to get any more comments into you?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Our plan was to bring back the report once we make the revisions, to bring it back for council to accept it. However, if you would like to work on a different timeline than me bringing it back at the next meeting, you know, if we want to bring it back in December or January, we can certainly extend it so that you have more time to review it. We could have that discussion, but if you'd like to have a bit more time, we can certainly do that.
I personally don't think there's a lot of point in dragging it out. We're going to be busy later as well. If there's any further comments, if we had them into you by the end of the week, could you keep your time schedule?
It would depend on what the comments are and based on what WSP would have to do to make those adjustments. But certainly if you have a timeline by the end of this week, then that would keep things moving forward for sure.
All right. We'll go with that, I think, then, and maybe everybody said everything that they're going to want to say. You might not get anything, but if you don't hear from us by the end of the week, time's up. Thank you very much for the presentation. It's much appreciated. I think when we set out to do this, it was kind of daunting for us, knowing that this trail was there, what to do, and we decided to get outside help, and I'm glad we did. I don't think staff or ourselves would have had the time, the expertise to do what you guys have done. So we just have to take all this information now, digest it, and come up with something that's going to work great for the community, I hope. So thank you very much. I'll turn it back to the mayor.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, we will move into action requests. Declaration of surplus property, former Williamstown Fire Station. It's by Mr. Robertson. Resolution is moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Bougie. Be it resolved that staff report 127-2023 be received and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry declares the former Williamstown Fire Station, located at 19652 John Street and legally described as Lot 21 on Registered Plan 19, PIN 671210448, as surplus to the needs of the Township of South Glengarry. Mr. Robertson? Mrs. Haley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just get started. I believe everyone is aware that Mr. Robertson is not able to make it in person this evening, and I did author this staff report with his review and approval. So the purpose of the report before you this evening is for council to consider declaring this parcel of property as surplus. You will see in the staff report that I provided, or that we provided, indicates that a review was done internally to look at the possibility of utilizing that structure. And in the staff report, we basically identify some of the constraints that the structure and the property presents that really don't make it a really attractive structure to easily be reused or revitalized for a different use. And I also noted in the staff report as well that the parking lot for this structure is located on the west side, is actually owned by the St. Lawrence Agricultural Society. So basically the property really covers almost the entire property. A couple of other constraints to note as well is it backs onto the Raisin River. And there is some natural hazard components in that location. And so that really does present some difficulties when looking at kind of redeveloping that space or repurposing that space. Also, it's noticeable that there's a lack of space to replace the existing septic system. I understand that there was a detailed discussion internally to look at all the different options for different departments to use. And I believe it was determined that there really wasn't a need for the space. So if council chooses to declare this space surplus, we would then be responsible to follow our bylaw to being the sale and purchase of property bylaw to dispose of the property. And if council agrees to this resolution, the next step would be to obtain an appraisal. And once that appraisal is obtained, we would then come back to council to discuss different options. Based on that bylaw, you have the option to list that property for sale publicly. You could be looking at maybe selling it to an abutting property owner if that's of interest. So I think it's important to make sure when we come back to council, we outline all of the options so you then know what your possibility or your options are. Mr. Robertson, who's online, certainly knows much more about the building than I will ever know. We did provide a copy of the building condition assessment, and if there's any questions, I'm sure he could speak to the structure, and then I could speak to the process of disposition if there's any. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any questions of council? It seems like we'll get to consider what we do with it after this moment, but I don't know if that maybe put a thought in staff's mind to give them some direction, but certainly this is the start to whatever process we want. Deputy Mayor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Yes, I think it's time. I get questions on the building likely more than once a week at least. People asking if we've made up our mind, are we doing anything, what's happening, is there a process? So I think and this is the start of the process. I think we need to move forward, and I'm in favor of declaring it surplus.
Okay, Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor McDonald. I'm glad to hear, Ms. Haley, that you said there was very detailed conversations throughout the township departments, because, I mean, that in my mind was, potentially, perhaps there's another department that might want to use it, could potentially use that space, but understanding the condition of the building, I understand that, that there's investment to bring it up to a certain, to do certain improvements, and perhaps those dollars could be better spent elsewhere. And so if it truly is, not usable for other township needs, then I'm supportive of it moving, starting a process of seeing how we could dispose of it. But one comment I do want to make for the future is, I just want to hope that as we move forward, that the township departments, we continue to work very collaboratively amongst each other, because we do have, different, there's still quite a bit of space at the new fire hall in the back that could potentially be repurposed. I just hope that, that the different departments continue to work together and use, maximize the opportunities to collaborate on our use of space throughout our township buildings. Thanks.
All right, as somebody who was walking his dog whenever 3 department heads were talking about this building, I can assure you that there was a pretty, I assume, a pretty good discussion on it. So all those in favor of the motion as read? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. We will now move to item 7B, Tyotown Heights subdivision, final acceptance. Ms. McDonald, moved by Councillor McDonnell, and I'm sorry for that. That's the second time this evening. I guess I've been talking to my cousins and not you so much. Seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that staff report 128-2023 be received, and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry direct the General Manager of Infrastructure Services to issue the final acceptance of the works for the Tyotown Heights subdivision and release the remaining security. Ms. McDonald.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. This staff report is pretty self-explanatory. I'll note that item 2 references an authorization of the subdivision agreement as February 16th of this year. Should be 2021. That is absolutely a typo. But if you click on the link, it will bring you to the, it's dated properly in the link. Just to orient council, this is a subdivision that's located on Tyotown directly across from the retaining wall. It was final accepted more than a year ago. The acceptance was just on grading. And so from the administration's point of view, there's no issue in issuing final acceptance. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments for or against from council? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Action request 7C, request for donation, Legion Poppy Campaign, branch number 544. Ms. MacDonald. Moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Bougie. Be it resolved that staff report 129-2023 be received, and that the Township of South Glengarry authorize a donation of $200 to the Royal Canadian Legion branch 544 Poppy Campaign. Ms. MacDonald.
Good evening, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Quite a straightforward request, just for council to decide if they would like to support with their remaining discretionary funds. We've actually had a few groups who have not claimed their donation amount because their project did not go forward, and in one case of a Williamstown group spending less than what they'd requested, which was appreciated. So there are approximately $1,800 remaining for sure, and then one more group left to confirm they're not requesting their funds. So there's ample funds remaining.
Are there any questions or comments? No. Oh, Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor McDonald, just really quickly, when I originally saw this, I assumed this was for the national campaign. But as is clearly noted in the staff report, I mean, clearly, if a national campaign is also a very worthy cause, but I think particularly for our grants and donation process, it really is for local initiatives. So I'm very glad to see that it is for initiatives within our community. Thanks.
All right, all those in favor? Any of opposed? Seeing none, carried. We'll move to item 8A, appoint Chief Administrative Officer. Mrs. Campo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. So at the beginning of the meeting this evening, we introduced our new CAO, Doug Robertson. And so with this proposed bylaw, I officially take the acting CAO cap off and pass the torch over to Doug. So just want to extend welcome to Doug. We had a great first day and looking forward to accomplishing great things with him.
All right, I apologize to council for not reading the resolution before. That was my fault. No, I introduced you. So moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that Staff Report 130-2023 be received and that Bylaw 74-2023, being a bylaw to appoint Chief Administrative Officer for the Township of South Glengarry, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 6th day of November. So you heard from our clerk, Mrs. Campo. Any comments or questions? Deputy Mayor Lang?
Thank you very much. Welcome aboard. We're looking forward to this. It's exciting time, so thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? Any of opposed? Seeing none, carried. We'll now move to the items for consideration. 9A, Township Road Classification. Miss McDonald?
Thank you. Excuse me.
And please remember to be close to the microphone. Closer, please.
Closer?
Yes, please.
Is this better? Cool. Sorry. It seems very loud here. Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. This is an item for consideration for council, and it's kind of a setup for our committee of the whole meeting later this month. Sorry, that's sets the groundwork, not a setup. Yeah, this is starting off really well. So basically, a road classification system designates roads into different groups according to the type of service that each group is intended to provide. And it's a fundamental tool for road management and development, since grouping like with like can improve both transportation planning, road infrastructure design, maintenance, traffic and road operations, land use planning, and a whole raft of things. What this isn't is it's not a replacement for the minimum maintenance standards, which is Ontario Regulation 23902. And that's a regulation that does provide road classifications, but those classifications are designed along with the regulation to provide municipalities with a shield by which to form a regulatory defense against claims. So that's not, what we're proposing here does not impact the minimum maintenance standards at all. That would still apply. The 6 classifications of roads within those standards would still apply to our maintenance needs. This is very much on the functional side. So how does the road operate? What does it do? What would the township like for it to continue to do? So the purpose of this conversation, and it really just is a conversation, or perhaps at the end just a bunch of thumbs ups, I'm not really too sure, is an endorsement of the definitions, not an agreement, not like a, what's the word? Yeah, it's not a decision, it's not a resolution, it's just, yes, administration, you're on the right track. Don't scrap this, and we can continue to build on this as kind of a foundation, and it can be scrapped in the future if council decides, of course, that it's not the direction that we would like to go, but we need to start somewhere. So we do have an existing road classification, and it's provided through our official plan. It broadly says we have provincial highways, we have county roads, we have township roads, and then the official plan gives us as a municipality an opportunity to further define our township roads. So that's what this is saying, great, provincial highways, county roads, they exist, other people manage those. You have township roads, so what classifications and uses would you like within the township? And there's a lot of words in this document to kind of go through that, but I thought it was important to kind of explain how we got here and what guidelines we've used both provincially and nationally to kind of support this, because this is a very fundamental thing in transportation planning, and it's incredibly common in Ontario and well, in Canada. And there are a lot of municipalities, both our size and larger, who rely on road classifications. So when we look at this, what can these classifications do for us? They can help us to find it's page 4 of 6, if you're looking, if you keep going down for the folks at home. Yeah, keep going. Right there at the top of it. Oh, no, keep going down. Sorry, my mistake. One more. Yeah, so it can help us define our levels of service. It can help us a little bit with our maintenance and operations, keeping in mind that it does not replace the minimum maintenance standards in any way, shape, or form. It helps us with our land use planning. So when we look at collector roads, we might want less density or a different size of like entrance on a collector road compared to a local road, or perhaps the other way around. So it just gives us words that we can use to set up what policies we put in place. And it would be the same word across all policies instead of continually redefining things that should be just defined once. And then if we want to make a change, we're not updating a whole raft of things. We're just saying, hey, we're going to change this, and that would cascade through all policies. It also helps us with our design and construction standards, our active transportation network, and then that would be in terms of shoulders or sidewalks, and sets us up for some fun things with our future roadway links, which would be our unopened road allowances. So all that said, what we're proposing for South Glengarry, and by we, I mean myself, I've consulted with the counties. We have EVP helping us in the background, and the senior management team has listened to me ramble about this a couple of times. So we all seem to be have general buy-in at that level. So for South Glengarry, very, very simple. Rural collector, which would be our higher volume roads. They are intended to carry traffic from locals to the arterials, so the counties and the province, with moderate truck traffic. So they are often have a bit more strength to them because they're expecting, that truck and goods movement through the township. Not to the level that the counties would be expecting, but somewhere between our locals and those arterials. And then we've defined our locals into rural local and urban local, with the rural locals kind of basoning a lot of things, and our urban locals being defined through the visual plan in our urban and rural settlement areas. And one thing that I did not note in here, but it would also be any roads that were approved by council through a subdivision. So we have a lot of subdivisions that are not necessarily captured in our settlement areas, but they would also be likely to be considered an urban local because they have asphalt, sometimes curbing, the density is a bit higher, traffic volumes are lower, so that would be that. And the one kind of fun thing in here is the concept of a municipal connecting link. This is not us taking over anything. It's not the municipality really doing anything other than getting ahead of something that may come down the pipe someday from the counties. So in the provincial framework, a connecting link is a provincial road that happens to cut through a county municipality, and there's funding that gets transferred. That's not what we're proposing here. We're saying, hey, there's a county road, it cuts through your like a settlement area or a village or a hamlet, and let's look. There's really only two in South Glengarry, so let's say Lancaster. It would basically be, we would designate as South Glengarry County Road 34 as a connecting link. It in no way makes us responsible for anything other than saying that this has economic potential for us. We would like to have a bit more say perhaps in the future. We're already doing enhancements on that road. We pay for the line painting, for the parking, all of the boulevard and the sidewalk, that's all on us. So it's just saying if there was a time in the future where a Connecting Links program came down from the county, we would be a step ahead and we would have already predefined. And then we could go to county council and say, we suggest these because they already match with our road classification policy. So if we could just go to the very last table, that's really the meat and potatoes. So if this was to come back through a policy, it would be this table that council would be more or less approving, and it just defines what each type of road classification is. And again, we really only have say to that rural collector, the urban local, and the rural local. And I will embarrassingly note another error. My greater than and less than signs are backwards. So a rural collector is greater than 500, and the locals are less than 500. And thank you to Councillor Jaworski for pointing that out to me today. The takeaways here are the rural collectors, and this was put in with advice from the county. So the desired right-of-way width for a rural collector at 26 meters, that's wider than anything that we have right now. It's not something that we'd go out and say, let's acquire land to get this 26 meters, but it does set us up for future transfers upwards, if that should be maybe in 50. At some point in the future, these would likely be the roads that would be transferred up or down between the counties and the township. So by having already a 26-meter right-of-way, over time, we'd just be getting ahead of that for the township. So again, that is looking like very far into the future, but it's nice to set ourselves up for success. And again, the road collectors would see a bit more commercial traffic. Note that all of our township roads would still have seasonal load restrictions applied, so we wouldn't be in any way saying that we're designed to county standards, which is quite expensive, and that's not really the purpose of our roads. And that's just like the base and the structural soundness is to a higher level. So for discussion, council, do you think that we're on the right track? Should we peel it back, or are we okay with more or less these 3 designations? And again, when it comes back to council for proper approval, you can change things. So it's not the last kick of the can, just I don't want to keep going if you think that we're off base. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I saw Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, I was going to make a comment at one point on the connecting links part, because if you look across the province, like City of Cornwall, I believe, is doing complete rehabilitation for Cornwall Center Road to Brookdale from 138, because that's considered a connecting link. They'll get Brookdale all the way to the bridge. So if we see a further expansion of that project for funding in the future, which I think the 34, like you know, was kind of it meets the qualifications, and it's taking a beating from cross province and industry truck traffic in particular, and you know, heavy equipment from local farmers aren't exempt either. But we do see a lot of truck traffic come down through Lancaster. Just look at our train tracks, how often they get destroyed and how long they last. So I think it's not a bad idea as far as deeming some of our roads connecting links, like you said, and going forward there may be opportunities. So overall, I did have a question in regards to this. We're primarily going to be doing this in-house, correct? This would be more or less an initiative for yourself and your team type thing? Okay, thank you.
I just ask a clarification. Did you say Connecting Links potentially offers more funding sometime in the future?
I think it's if it were to be expanded, where like 34 could be picked up in that program. I think the City of Cornwall is getting like, don't quote me on this, but it's just shy of $1 million for that like 2-kilometer section for full rehabilitation, and they do very well on that program. It's one that they make a point of thanking the provincial government, because it is very good for them, but it covers the international bridge, the 401 and the 417, or 138.
Oh, thank you very much. That's I wouldn't have known that. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. Thank you, Ms. McDonald, for this report. Directionally, I think this makes a lot of sense. I think just kind of having all our roads, all our township roads, kind of like in the same pot, doesn't help when we try to have conversations about where we invest or where we might have different levels of service. I'm just thinking like the Glen Road in terms of like snowplow routes, where we've tried to, certain routes we wanted to have, an extra pass when possible. And I think it's just easier when we're talking about the future to have that. But obviously I did catch that wider right of way on the rural collector. And, as long as it's not something that, is because this moves forward, that happens automatically. I mean, that has to, that's a big change potentially. So as long as that's sort of a deliberative thing as opposed to an automatic thing, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I guess, and I don't know if this is adding a lot more work, but I'm thinking even on the rural local road, that maybe that even needs to be subdivided further. Like perhaps we need to have another one, because we have some rural local roads that have, there's a big difference between, less than 500 and 0. And some, have very, very small numbers, and some might have a couple hundred. And I wonder, again, I'd have to look at like a distribution of how the roads are, but I figure that there probably is within that rural road even another pocket, or a collection of roads that are even smaller. And I don't know, that might make sense also to have those ones, to be able to speak to those kind of roads together. It might make it easier to make certain decisions about their maintenance and whatnot. Okay, Thank you.
Okay, yes, please proceed with that, and then I guess give Councillor Jaworski's thought some due consideration, because yeah, it's like 25 cars, it's a lot different than 499 and regularly used. It might be considered less. And if I may, just on mine, I like to see that like land use type and vehicle type, because those are even sometimes more than, and you have it on your list as a 1 in 5 or 1 in 6. I like that, because where our farm equipment comes off, or where there's a milk truck, it's that alone can change a road, or what we need design. So I like that that's part of this. So thank you very much for your time. Consent agenda. 10A, 2023 Annual Accessibility Status Report. Mrs. Campo, I don't know who pulled this. Is it? Oh, Deputy Mayor Lang for the whole bunch of them. So Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I got ahead of Councillor Jaworski this time. Usually she phones in before we do and pulls them all. So I did that. Anyway, not a big item. I think I was very happy to see the report, and it looks like we've really made a lot of progress. And I was speaking to Ian McDonald the other day, and he was quite happy, he said, with what's going on. I just had a question, and it had to do with the museum. I'm trying to remember the page number. It might have been 418. Yes, 418. It just says create a designated parking spot on the street for the museum. And we just redid the roads this year, and I just thought to myself, if we were going to do that, why wouldn't we have done it this year? I just had that question.
I believe, if I may, that there is a parking spot beside the barn. I thought there was gravel. Ms. Service?
I think we're talking a handicap spot.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So the parking spot that it's referring to in the report, just speaking with GM McDonald, we would need another 3.5 to 4 meters of width to do it on the roadway. So we are looking into the new parking spot that's been installed at the back of the museum, possibly paving that parking spot, making it accessible, possible pathways coming into the museum. So that's why it has been extended a few years as well. So we can look into that option. That might also be a bit more safer for accessibility as well.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you for that correction. I got off base. I saw parking lots. I'm like, I thought we did. I walked my dog there. Anyway, 10C, postponement of grants and donations policy. This is Deputy Mayor Lang again.
I just brought it forward because basically staff was asking us if it would be okay to postpone until after a new strategic plan, and I am in favor. I'm not sure what everybody else is thinking.
Straw poll. Yep, we're in favor. Great. 10E, proclamation request, 25th anniversary of Habitat Cornwall and National Housing Day. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you. I brought that one. I wasn't sure the way it was written whether they were asking us to fly a flag, and I just had some questions, and just wanted to know exactly where they were going with that one.
Mrs. Campo.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I believe Habitat Humanity is looking for a proclamation of support. So if council is in favor of a proclamation, I can certainly bring one back to our next meeting.
I would speak in favor of that. I think we've supported them in the past. I think they do some good work, and would have no problem doing that if the rest of council was in favor.
Seeing nods of heads, and yes, we are in favor. Letter MPP Catherine Fife, support Bill 21.
I brought this forward just when reading it. It just seemed to, I could just imagine, what it must be like to somebody that would, been married for 50, 60 years and gets, ends up having to go to somewhere where you're assisted and not able to stay together. And if, I don't know, myself, I just thought this was a very worthwhile cause, and it sounds like they've been working on this for a long time, and every time they get it, to second reading, and then the government's dissolved or whatever, and it has to start all over again, and just thought maybe we could add our voice to push it forward.
Thank you. Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it's Bill 21. I've looked at a few times. It's there's a lot of sentimental value to it, like you say, Martin. For somebody, at my age, maybe not so much. Whenever you're looking at it in the long term, I'm hoping I make it to a home, but maybe not. I'm weary supporting a motion put forward or a bill as it's written. None of us have looked at it as it is. If we want to send a letter and say in principle it's a nice idea, but generally opposition bills are put forward with 10 little clauses at the bottom that are absolutely ludicrous and have to come out of committee, which it's past 2 readings, it's at committee. I think they're doing their work, and none of us are industry professionals, so it's a nice idea, but I don't feel like going around supporting the opposition in bills when we haven't read them personally. But if we want to send a letter to the MPP, he sits on that committee, it might be a nice, in principle, it's a good idea, but I don't want to sign any support letter or send any support letters for Bill 21.
Would there be an issue with sending a letter to ask them to move it forward? It doesn't, not saying to whether it's passed or not, but it doesn't seem to be, it just seems to sit there and it doesn't seem to get, I forget, I'm not going to read all the fine print there right now, but I don't know if it needs to get to the standing committee or whatever it is. It never seems to move anywhere.
I think it's just not been scheduled. There's other ones ahead of it, and sometimes they get bumped quicker, sometimes they get bumped slower. But if we want to send a letter, I wouldn't send anything specific to just specific to the way it's written, and we've got a good rapport with our current sitting government, and it's one that we've fought former governments as this council and councils before. So I'm always hesitant to go against the hand that is feeding.
Are there
Anybody else have any thoughts?
Yeah, the speakers in favor. Councillor Jaworski?
I mean, I think it is, I mean, I did read it, I did think about bringing it forward, but I'm glad that you did, Deputy Mayor Lang. And certainly, I'd be in support of writing something general enough that all of council could support, because I think it is an important issue, and I think, like any issue, if we indicate that it's an important one for our township to, keep some focus on it, and that is important to us, that could help. If it's perhaps not an opposition bill, but sometimes then the government brings in its own bill. I think that that might have value there too.
So in that regard, could we write a staff report potentially, or a resolution of support? Perhaps not that motion that we haven't read, because that's fair, and we don't know all the riders, so to speak, on it. But that supports the principle of the main idea there, and then perhaps Councillor McDonnell, if you want, could you make yourself available just to look at it, because it's kind of okay. Thank you. Resolution, call for an amendment to the Legislation Act, Township of McKellar. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you. This basically has to do with the fact that we're losing our newspapers, as we know very well here. And as municipal bodies, we need to advertise. And they're just asking for permit, from what I get out of it, unless somebody's read it wrong differently, I mean, they're asking for permission to be able to do that with online type papers, so that, if there isn't a written paper there, we can still fulfill our obligations. And so I don't know if staff wants to speak to it at all, but I just thought, this day and age, newspapers are disappearing quickly.
Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there is a government bill on that. MPP Saracen has his private member's bill with another MPP in the Ottawa area on that exact topic, so we'll hopefully see monthlies allowed as well. As it's written, and Ms. Haley can correct me, I think the way it's written right now, you can't even use a monthly newspaper to circulate a Planning Act amendment. So they're working on getting that opened up to where it's not just weekly or dailies. So it'll be good. But yes, no, in principle, again, it's a good idea.
Okay, with this one, show of hands, or unless there's somebody for or against? This, okay. Okay, yes, then we will put a support motion for this one in principle. Thank you. Closed session, again, was removed from the start of the meeting. We'll go through the, sorry? Oh, not removed, but we're no longer going into closed session this meeting. Right. But we have to, yes. So moved by Councillor Jaworski, seconded by, it says Mayor McDonald. Can I get a seconder? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang. Be it resolved that council accepts the items listed on the consent agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Now, the confirming bylaw, moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Be it resolved that bylaw 75/2023, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council the 6th day of November 2023. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry adjourn to the call of the chair at 9:08 p.m. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried.